Good morning. This is Black Crow Walking, bringing you a Course of Love by Mari Perron. It's a study that we're doing, and we're up to chapter 3, verse 18. And I'm going to read you a little bit of the previous verse, which is verse 17, so that you can get the context of what they're talking about in 18. Our hearts, in contrast, go out to the world, to the suffering, to the weak of body and of mind. Our hearts are not so easily contained within the casing of our flesh and bone. Our hearts take wings with joy and break with sadness. Not so the brain that keeps on registering it all, a silent observer, soon to tell you that the feelings of your heart were foolish indeed. It is to our hearts that we appeal for guidance, for there resides the one who truly guides. So once again it's telling us to get out of our heads, which is going to give us all this wrong information about being foolish for caring about other people, and appeal to the heart, listen to the heart for its guidance, for it truly guides. Now for today's reading. You who think this idea is rife with sentiment, sure to lead you to abandoning logic, and therefore certainly to cause your ruin. I say to you again, take heart. Such foolishness of your heart's desire will save you now. Remember, it is your heart that yearns for home. Your heart that yearns for love remembered. Your heart that leads the way that, should you follow, will set you certainly on the path for home. What pain has your heart endured that it has failed to treasure for its source? Its source is love. And what greater proof need you of love's strength? Such pain as your heart endured would surely be a knife to cut through tissue, a blow that to the brain would stop all functioning, an attack upon the cells far greater than any cancer. The pain of love, so treasured that it cannot be let go, can and does indeed attack the tissues, brains and cells. All then you call it illness, and allow the body to let you down, still and always holding love unto yourself. Must pain accompany love and loss? Is this the price you pay, you ask, for opening up your heart? And yet, should you be asked if you would have other than this love, you would answer no. Well, you would not answer yes. What else is worth such cost, such suffering, so many tears? What else would you not let go when pain comes near? As a hand would drop a burning ember, what other pain would you hold closely? A grief not to be given up. What other pain would you be so unwilling to sacrifice? Think not that these are senseless questions, made to bring love and pain together, and they're there to leave you unaided and unhelped. For pain and love kept together in this way make no sense, and yet makes the greatest sense of all. These questions merely prove love's value. What else do you value more? Okay. let's have a look at it. I think I'd like to go over verse 17 again from yesterday and just have another look at it. Our hearts, in contrast, go out to the world, to the suffering, to the weak of body and of mind. Because our hearts don't judge people. Our hearts simply love. And when we listen to our hearts, we're on a much better track than when we listen to our minds that are always having an opinion about something. And mostly cruel opinions as well. Our hearts are not so easily contained within the casing of our flesh and bone. What does that mean? It means our hearts are an energy that can expand beyond the universe. Our hearts are connected. Our hearts are joined with everything and everyone on the planet. Our hearts are tuned in, turned in and tapped on to the most beautiful love that is here for us at all times in our holy states. I say holy states because today in the Course of Miracles we're looking at the difference, the opposite to feeling guilt is, well, feeling guilt is hell. So what's the opposite to that? Our holiness is heaven. So let's move into really seeing that our hearts can't be contained in the casing of our flesh and bone. Our hearts take wing with joy and break with sadness. Do they really break? Do they? Or is that just a metaphor? Is it just a metaphor for healing? For showing us that we need to heal? For showing us that we had attached to something that wasn't real? Because love is always here. It's not gone. It's here, always. People may come and go in our lives. People may betray us and disconnect from us. And it does hurt. Of course it hurts. It makes us very sad. It's a loss. And it's a loss from our attachment. It does not mean that we don't love the person. That deep love is always there, despite their behaviour, despite their rejection. It is always there, and that's what makes us sad, that we can't express that love anymore to that person. And yet we can. Our mind says we can't, but we can. That love is always there, and every thought that you have of that person can be a loving thought that extends beyond the bone and flesh. Let's think of love differently and being in love with someone differently. It doesn't have to be about pain. It can be about blessing them for moving on, blessing them for change, blessing them for creating change in both yours and their lives. Our heart takes wing with joy and break with sadness. I know what it's like to be in love. And that wing of joy is like flying. Your heart is flying. It's such an elated feeling. And I know what it's like to be sad when someone goes out of your life, whether they die or they walk away. I know that sadness. Not so the brain that keeps on registering it all. Here we get to the crux of it. It's the brain that keeps us locked in registering it. I think this is for you and me today, Kylie. Not so the brain that keeps us registering it all. A silent observer, soon to tell you that the feelings of your heart were foolish indeed. Of course it does. When someone walks away, we think we've made a wrong choice, but we haven't. We've made a choice for that moment. And now we have a new choice and a new moment. I don't know why I didn't see all this yesterday. It mustn't have been meant to. It's amazing. It is to our hearts that we appeal for guidance, for there resides the one who truly guides. Listening to your heart and not your head. Your head will tell you all sorts of mean and nasty things about that person. Your head will judge and categorize and label, and your heart will just sit in the observer role and feel. And let yourself feel. Let yourself feel to the nth degree. It doesn't mean you act upon those feelings. It just means you own them. And you let yourself heal by letting yourself feel those feelings. And you who think this idea is rife with sentiment, sure to lead you to abandoning logic, oh my God, heaven forbid, and therefore certainly to cause your ruin, I say to you, take heart. Such foolishness as your heart's desire will save you now. Remember, it is your heart that yearns for home. Your heart that yearns for love remembered. Your heart that leads the way that, should you follow, will set you certainly on the path for home. Our friend Patricia's overseas at the moment, and she's on a plane right now coming home. She's been away for quite a few months. And our friend Sylvia is overseas at the moment. They may have two very different concepts of what it is to want to come home. I know when I come home from being overseas, the thought of sleeping in my own bed with my own pillow is so delicious. And that feeling of coming home to yourself and your own heart, when you've been away in the mind, being logical and trying to label and judge and have an opinion about something is exhausting. It's a full-time job when you're in your head. It's like you go to work and labour and suffer, and then you desperately want to come home. And what are you coming home to? You're coming home to the heart where you can just sit and be relaxed in your heart. You don't have to think. Your thinking is over. It's not your job anymore. And that's what this is all about. Relax. Come home to your heart. And stop all this rolling around in the rat cage of your thoughts. Stop all this trying to label everything and work it out and get the meaning of it, and abandoning your true self. That's what you're doing when you're in your head about things. That's what you're doing when you're suffering. That's what you're doing when you're deliberately thinking, trying to make it different, trying to accept it. Just come home to your heart and rest there and let yourself feel if you need to feel until you've felt beyond the pain into that state of peace that the heart offers. What pain has your heart endured that it has failed to treasure for its source? For its source. What pain has your heart endured that it has failed to treasure for its source? Its source is love. What greater proof need you of love's strength? Such pain as has your heart endured would surely be a knife to cut through tissue, a blow that to the brain would stop all functioning, an attack upon the cells far greater than any cancer. The pain of love so treasured that it cannot be let go of, can and does indeed attack the tissues, brains and cells. And then you call it illness and allow the body to let you down, still and always holding love unto yourself. It's interesting, isn't it? The violent attack of our thoughts on love when we're ending a relationship, or when we're suffering in a relationship, or when we're desperate to get out of a relationship and we're not. We're still in the rut of it. Can cause that severe, absolutely severe attack on the physical body, which can cause illness. The real illness is in the head. That's where you're ill. And you'll manifest being sick from that illness. Because you're craving love. We all crave love. And what does love look like? Does it look like an attachment to someone, a codependent relationship? You have to ring me, you have to be there. And sometimes it's so bad that we need them to give us a dose of pain because that's what we're used to. Here we go. Stop it. Oh, my favourite words. Must pain accompany love and loss? Is this the price you pay, you ask, for opening up your heart? And yet should you be asked if you would have other than this love, would you not answer yes? I'm going to read it again, because I think there's a really important message in there and we need to get it. Must pain accompany love and loss? Must pain accompany love and loss? Are you going into your head right now? Are you trying to work that one out? Is this the price you pay, you ask, for opening up your heart? How many of us have been there? And yet you should be asked if you would have other than this love. You would not answer yes. Why? Is that because we're addicted to pain? Even just a scrap of love. We're so needy because we're not loving ourselves. When you truly love yourself, the love that comes from others is attracted to you. But when you don't love yourself, when you're in pain and suffering all the time, and low self-image and unable to make a decision about anything because you feel unworthy, you are in the pain that accompanies the need for love and the loss of it. And you deliberately choose to suffer just for that little tiny glimpse of love that sometimes appear, and often after you've received the most intense pain from the other person. What else is worth such cost, such suffering, so many tears? What else would you not let go when pain comes near, as a hand would drop a burning ember? Really, this is the story of my life. Cancerian, loves too much, holds on when pain is there, when I should drop that burning ember, and I've held on and I've held on and I've hoped the other person would change because I loved them so much. But that's not the truth. I just died a little every day and became ill, and still suffering the illness of that behaviour, of that unaware state of holding burning embers in relationships. What other pain would you hold closely? A grief not to be given up. Domestic violence is such. If you're in a relationship where you're constantly knocking at each other and you think it's funny, your brain is arse about. Because anything that diminishes you, my beloved, is an attempt at superiority and power over. And if you're in that power under relationship, you're holding hot embers that are burning you. And what sort of sense does that make? What other pain would you hold closely? A grief not to be given up. What other pain would you be so unwilling to sacrifice? Think not that these are senseless questions, made to bring love and pain together, and there to leave you unaided and unhelped. For pain and love kept together in this way make no sense, and yet makes the greatest sense of all. These questions merely prove love's value. What else do you value more? We are looking for love, but that love is already here. It's in everything and everyone. Whether they're acting out, whether they're asleep, whether they're unaware, love is there, and we're looking for that in everyone. Find it in yourself. Find it in yourself. Find it in the trees. Find it in the water. Find it in the eyes of the child. Find it in the grandmother and the grandfather. Find it in your warm and comfy bed and your loving pillow. But don't hold it in the pain. Love yourself so much that you don't need burning embers in your heart. You don't need things that are going to cause you pain, suffering. That's not love. That's not your love. That's your fear. Fear that you won't get love anywhere else. If you look for that love inside yourself, my beloved, you will find it. And you'll find a whole lot more beautiful, calm, peaceful way of living. And that will be what you put out, and that is what you get more of. It starts with the internal journey. When you truly love yourself, you will attract that love. When you are suffering, when you are in pain, when your self-image is so low that you can't make choices for yourself, because you don't trust yourself to make a good choice. And believe me, I've been there. I have been there in relationship. That's when you get more of that. And you will only attract fear, pain and suffering. Time to give that up and to choose an internal path that leads you to self-love. And I love you. And until tomorrow, let's spend some time today really looking at where we are still in pain and suffering and letting go of those hot embers and coming back to self-love, self-care, self-nourishment, self-nurturing, self-kindness, all those self-love words, so that you can make wonderful decisions for yourself in your own life. Blessed be.